Good morning, everybody. You're watching our mid-morning edition of Arirang News on this Tuesday, June 23rd. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Min. And before we get started, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. A fresh new cluster of infections has been discovered in the port city of Busan, stemming from a Russian ship from Vladivostok. Of the 21 sailors on board, 16 have tested positive for COVID-19, alarming local authorities amid the steady flow of new infections. Producer prices remained flat in the month of May, putting brakes on 3 months of consecutive price falls. However, that same reading is still 1.7% lower than in the same month the previous year. Plus, North Korea brings back propaganda loudspeakers along the border between the two Koreas exactly 2 years after both sides pulled down their devices following the first summit back in 2018. Our starting point this morning, a cluster of COVID-19 infections has been confirmed on a Russian vessel docked in South Korea's southeastern port city of Busan. Of the total 21, 16 Russian sailors have tested positive so far. And making matters even more worse, over 150 people came into contact with those patients, and they reportedly had not been following the proper preventive and social distancing measures. Our Lee Kyung-eun leading us off.
This virus-hit Russian vessel entered Kamcheon port in the southeastern city of Busan on Sunday. The captain was confirmed to have COVID-19, after which the Busan National Quarantine Station tested all the sailors aboard. Of 21 people, all but 5 are confirmed positive as of Tuesday. They're all Russian nationals.
The other 5 could be retested if they start showing symptoms.
Some 160 people came in contact with the patients, most of whom are local port union workers who have been helping to unload cargo and repair the ship. The city government has quarantined them and will carry out testing. They will start with 34 workers who had the closest contact with the infected sailors. In the meantime, the confirmed patients have been quarantined in a separate section inside the boat and will be transported to Busan Medical Center on Tuesday. It is said the sailors and workers had not been taking proper virus prevention measures like wearing face masks, prompting concerns about even more infections sprouting up. This new cluster has again put South Korean health authorities on high alert amid continuing group infections outside Seoul and the possibility of a glaring loophole in port quarantine. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
Staying here in South Korea, 4 additional types of so-called high-risk COVID-19 facilities are now subject to the South Korean government's stricter inspections. The government had previously announced that door-to-door sales companies, logistics centers, large private academies with a capacity of over 300 people, and buffet restaurants would be added to the category, as these places have been at the center of the latest cluster of infections in the capital region. Now, the designated businesses are now required to keep track of visitors using QR codes and follow quarantine guidelines. The government previously imposed these measures on 8 types of facilities, including nightclubs, singing rooms, indoor group sports facilities, and indoor standing concert halls. Worldwide, the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases has now topped 9 million. It's a concerning milestone, and making matters worse, experts say the virus could be mutating and becoming more infectious than ever. They say this may make it even more difficult to produce a vaccine. Our Lee Seung-jae explains.
Another grim milestone has been hit. The 9 millionth global COVID-19 infection was reported as of Monday 3:20 p.m. GMT. Of the 9 million plus infections reported worldwide, Europe and the United States make up more than half. Over the past week, the world has seen more than 1 million new cases, raising concerns that the virus is spreading faster than ever. However, according to AFP, with more infections than tests being done, there may be a lot more infections than the official numbers indicate. That may be due to a mutation in the virus, according to a research team at China's Chongqing Medical University. The mutation form, known as D164G, was identified in genetic samples collected in the Shinfadi food market in Beijing and had been spreading in Europe as early as February and became the world's dominant strain by May. The strain has been seen in 70% of sequence samples in Europe and North America. Not only is the mutation more infectious than the initial strain, but it may also slow vaccine development. New studies say antibodies taken from recovered COVID-19 patients in China have failed to stop the new strain, which means people may still be vulnerable to a mutant form of the virus despite having antibodies. Researchers tested how the new strain reacted to the antibodies of 41 people who recovered from the virus. The results showed that 3 failed to neutralize the virus, while 1 antibody didn't even respond to the new strain. Experts say despite researchers racing to find a vaccine, the mutation will limit its effectiveness even when it's developed. They say the current vaccine development cannot keep up with the rate of mutation. They fear that more variations of COVID-19 will continue to form each year like the common cold, and vaccine development will have to be repeated periodically. 이승재, Arirang News.
Despite the recent uptick in the number of COVID-19 infections here in South Korea, the World Health Organization says the country is on the right track with its virus control measures. According to Michael Ryan, the executive director of the WHO Health Emergencies Program, there was just a 3% increase in cases in South Korea last week and only 3 deaths, with the majority of new cases linked to existing and recognized clusters. While Ryan expressed confidence in South Korea's ability to contain the spread of the COVID-19, he reaffirmed the importance of remaining vigilant in the fight against the pandemic. South Korea's producer prices stabilized in the month of May following the injection of COVID-19 relief funds. The Bank of Korea says this Tuesday that its production price index came to 101.98, ending 3 consecutive months of on-month drops. Prices of agricultural products rose 2.7% due to high demand following the release of government financial aid. But prices of industrial products like chemical goods and computers fell 0.2% compared to the year before. The same price is still 1.7% lower on year. And now to the latest from North Korea. It has been confirmed that the regime is setting up its propaganda loudspeakers at several locations along the inter-Korean border. Now, this follows a series of actions taken by the regime in recent weeks that have raised tensions to a high not seen in years. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Kim Ji-yeon with more.
North Korea is reinstating loudspeakers in multiple places inside the demilitarized zone, a move that goes against the 2018 Panmunjom Declaration. Taking down the speakers was considered a key achievement from the summit between President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on April 27, 2018. The two Koreas had removed dozens of loudspeakers later that year in around 40 areas as part of the second of 5 clauses in the 2018 Panmunjom Declaration. The clause stipulates that from May 1, 2018, the two sides will halt all provocative acts, including the broadcasting of propaganda along the military demarcation line and the distribution of propaganda leaflets in order to turn the DMZ into a peace zone. In response, the South Korean military said it's closely monitoring the North's movements around the clock while maintaining its defense posture. It's widely expected that the South Korean military will reinstall its own loudspeakers under the military's protocol of responding to the North's activities in a proportional manner. This would raise tensions between Seoul and Pyongyang even further, especially since the North has warned it's going to start sending anti-South Korean propaganda leaflets across the border. The regime's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported that around 12 million leaflets have been tied to 3,000 balloons. It said the leaflets are being printed at factories across the north and claimed that they will make it all the way to what it called the center of South Korea, which could mean Seoul. The South Korean Defense Ministry reiterated that the distribution of leaflets across the inter-Korean border would be a violation of the Panmunjom Declaration. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, the memoir of U.S. President Donald Trump's former security top aide, John Bolton, is also sparking controversy here in South Korea as it criticizes efforts put forth by the Moon Jae-in administration to make possible a summit between the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. Although many doubt the credibility of Bolton's statements, they could serve as a guidance for Seoul's diplomacy moving forward. Our Kim Hyo-sun reports.
In his soon-to-be-released memoir, former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton criticizes South Korea's Moon Jae-in administration for facilitating the Pyongyang-Washington summit. He wrote how everything was Seoul's creation, relating more to its own unification agenda than serious strategy, explaining the South's understanding of the term denuclearization bore no relationship to fundamental U.S. interests. He also pointed out that he began to suspect the end-of-war declaration was in fact the Moon administration's idea rather than the North's. However, there is scant evidence to prove that Bolton's assertion is true. In fact, President Moon stated in the lead-up to the 2018 Inter-Korean Summit that the North Korea-U.S. dialogue and the regime's denuclearization should be the conditions for further talks between the two Koreas. Seoul and Washington also formed a working group to promote closer coordination between the two allies, which the North criticized as the South independence on, quote, foreign forces. Bolton also writes in his book that President Moon's diplomacy proved to be ineffective when the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. met again early last year in Hanoi. Bolton said Seoul predicted the two countries would ink a joint declaration when President Trump had three scenarios in his mind, which he described as a big deal, a small deal, and breakdown. While it's impossible to judge the credibility of Bolton's statements, they could serve as a major lesson for South Korea's diplomacy going forward, especially as President Trump and his top aides now share a similar distaste for Bolton. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
The White House has requested that over 400 parts of John Bolton's upcoming memoir to be revised or deleted. It said in an opinion submitted to the court that out of the 570 pages of Bolton's manuscript, 415 parts, including his assertions on Korean Peninsula-related issues, need to be revised or removed. The U.S. Justice Department earlier sued Bolton for his book, but it was rejected by a federal judge. Shifting focus, United States and Russian delegations held talks in Vienna on Monday on their nuclear arsenal for the first time in over a year. The envoys made guarded comments about the meeting, saying they're always very hopeful when they were asked about what to expect from the talks. The so-called New START reportedly limits each side to 800 nuclear missile launchers and 1,550 operational nuclear warheads and can be extended for up to 5 years if both countries agree. Now, this agreement is the last remaining nuclear arms control deal between the two sides, and President Trump has called on China numerous times to sign up for a new three-way nuclear arms control deal, but Beijing has rebuffed that proposal. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order temporarily halting new work visas for highly skilled workers until the end of this year. The new order temporarily halts H-1B, H-2B, H-4, and J-1 and L-1 visas, affecting tech firms and students, among others. Now, the latest round of visa suspensions comes on top of the halting of visas back in April for certain family members of green card holders. The Trump administration says the move is to protect American jobs amid the economic downturn caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. But many tech firm executives warn that the restrictions could damage the nation's ability to compete in key industries.
Good morning. We are expecting plenty of heat again, with many inland regions still under a heat wave advisory. Northern parts of the country, though, will see temperatures a few notches lower today, but still easily surpassing 30 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, Daejeon and Gwangju will be at 30 degrees this afternoon, and despite less sunshine today, do expect some strong UV rays, while Gwangju, Ulsan, and Jeju will have extreme UV levels, so protection from the sun is a must. Welcome news, the heat will ease with nationwide monsoon rain starting tomorrow. And the first band of nationwide monsoon rain will last through early Friday. Central regions and southern coastal regions will see heavier monsoon rainfall with 30 to 80 millimeters expected into Thursday, and rain should begin from the west early tomorrow morning before gradually spreading to the rest of the country. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
And that'll do it for this edition of Arirang News. As always, thank you for watching.